Well, Josh, welcome to the Prosper Brief podcast. Thanks for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm excited to be here.
So, tell me a little bit about Big Chicken and about the concept and where you guys are going.
Yeah, look, our concept, it's Shaquille O'Neal reached a point in his career where he really said, I need to do something for my legacy and I want to do something that celebrates my childhood. And for him, chicken is a very personal thing. He talks about barbecue chicken alert, when he's on TNT. And he called his agent, who also owned a restaurant group in Las Vegas, JRS Hospitality, and said, "This is our moment. Let's go do this. Let's inspire it on Mama Lucille's recipes." And we're all about big flavor, big fun, and bringing this incredible connection to Shaquille O'Neal to life.
And we've talked about this a little bit in the past, but what's it like working with Shaquille?
How much time do we have? What I love about Shaquille is he's the exact guy that you hope he would be, right? We all see him on air, and we all have heard stories of celebrities that are someone different than who their persona is. He's him. He understands who he is. He understands his values. I think he and I get along really well together because we share similar values, and as a result, it's really been a great privilege to work with Shaquille and to build this brand in his name.
That's great. And I think you had 23 locations in 2023. You're opening quite a few in 2024. How many are you at right now?
42.
Okay, great. Man, expanding.
Yeah, we've been building. Yeah, but the interesting thing, and if Shaquille was here, I'd say it, and he always laughs and shakes his head when I do. I have 99 problems because of Shaquille that no other restaurant CEO has. 99 things done for me that no other CEO gets, and growth is on both sides of that equation. So that 42, it's not all brick and mortar, right? We're on 4 Carnival cruise ships. We're in a bunch of arenas. We're in an airport. We're in a casino. You sort of never know where we're going to show up, which is sort of one of the more fun things about this experience. Oakview Group is one of our investor partners and a very close ally of us, and they put us into several arenas. We entered the United Kingdom earlier this year through Co-op Live, the new arena in Manchester, England. So our growth is very non-traditional, but I think when you think about someone as supersized as Shaquille, you would expect supersized growth in a way that's different from most.
Yep. So, and it's all been brick and mortar locations. Have you thought about going the ghost kitchen concept or any virtual type of concept as well?
Yeah, we tried it, and ultimately, I think the most important thing a brand needs to do is say, what is the brand and what feels right for the brand and what doesn't feel right for the brand. And for us, so many people love Shaq. They want to feel emotionally connected to him to a point that we have just as many people who come and pick up from our restaurant as order through third party delivery, right? Because they want to come in and they want to get their soda cup and stand in his footprints at the soda machine. And they want to see the Shaquille manifesto on the wall talking about why we started this in the first place. They want to feel connected to him. And part of my job over the next year, quite honestly, is going to be figuring out how to bring that emotional connection to full omni-channel so that people can get that experience no matter how they interact with us. But until we get that right, ghost kitchens are not going to be a part of our trajectory. That doesn't mean it won't be in the future. It just means it's not right now.
Okay, great. And then for the future plans, how many more locations are you still on this growth trajectory? And what's 2025 like?
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I don't like giving forward-facing statements like that, but what I will say is, we're selective in the franchisees we pick. The franchisees that come into our system are culturally aligned to us, values aligned, right? They see the world in a very similar way to us. We've had, well north of 4,000 applications at this point. We brought on 36 groups, right? We work with those 36 groups on planning growth, understanding we never know when the 37th group will show up, and we never know when we're going to get that random call that puts us on a different trajectory through non-traditional venues or through a different franchise area. All we can do is work with our franchisees to make sure they're honoring their development agreements.
Yeah, in these non-traditional locations, I could see there's pros and cons to that from your perspective, I imagine. But I
all pros.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, the thing about this, the first ever corporate award we won was Fodor Magazine's Best Fries at Sea. Right?
That's
Like that's
awesome.
not supposed to happen,
That's
right?
awesome.
So for us, we love it. I mean, we have picked up two franchisees on the groups I just mentioned. Two of them got off their cruise, their Carnival
Mhm.
cruise, and said, "I love that food so much. I'm getting the FDD today. I'm calling these people. I want to be a franchisee of Big Chicken."
Nice.
Right? And the number of people who, I mean, look, I live in New York Metro. The number of friends of mine from growing up on Long Island that send me every month photos of them eating big chicken at an Islanders game. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. It's marketing and sales at the same time. It's the perfect way to build the flywheel of fandom, and that's what we love about it.
Yeah, that's great. Chicken at sea, but I think that might be trademarked or something.
Well, that's a tuna fish company, but that's a completely different problem. Yeah.
No, that's great. And yeah, I bet that gives you guys a huge competitive advantage, though, in learning how to operate in these different venues like that.
Well, yeah, and it taught us to, the thing that most people don't realize. I mean, I've said it before. I am very, very much in the franchising industry, right? I happen to franchise restaurants, so I need to understand the restaurant industry. But when you put yourself in the mindset first of I'm in the franchising industry, you realize this is a math game. It is solely a math game. If you get your occupancy cost, your food cost, your labor cost right, and your AUVs right, odds are your franchisee is going to make really good four wall EBITDA, right? And if you get your cost to build right, odds are they're going to have really good cash on cash conversion, really good IRR, right? If you don't understand how to build the kitchen in the smallest possible space, you're asking them to take on more space, which means more rent, which means higher occupancy costs, which means harder to hit your IRR, all these things. So going non-traditional really forced us on how to be maximally efficient, right? And purposeful in how we look at things like build. And I think it makes us stronger even when we go back to brick and mortar because we know what we're capable of.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah.
For the operational issues, yeah, I mean, here in California, I'm based out of California. I know you've got a couple locations in California. We have the higher minimum wage that just took effect April 1st, 2024. But, across the country, we're seeing that minimum wage going up, a lot of regulations. Um, do you see that as a burden for the industry overall? And how are you guys approaching that?
Well, any answer I give will be politically wrong. So thank you for throwing that fastball at me. Uh, Look, it goes back to what I just said, though. It's about math. This is a math game. So if you know your labor costs are going to go up in absolute terms, right? You have a couple options, right? You can either lease places that are cheaper if you can find them. You can work to get your food cost down, or you could work to get your AUV up. Because if you're able to increase your AUV proportionate to your labor cost increase, you can swallow it whole, right? The other option that you have is looking at technology like kiosks and things of that sort, where now you may be able to take absolute labor hours out of the restaurant. But that's the way you need to look at it: is absolute number of labor hours, right? Times that
Yeah.
wage. And a lot of people say on fast side, oh well, you're lucky it doesn't affect you because you're not that size yet where you have to pay the 20 plus an hour. And it's well, that doesn't make sense, right? Because no one's going to say, hey, I'd rather work there for $4 an hour
Right.
less, just because they're smaller. We have to be priced there right now,
Right.
right? Which means we need to be looking at those math ratios, and we need to be looking at technology and understand there's not one silver bullet to overcome a labor increase. The same way there's not one silver bullet to overcome inflation. You can look at, can I take up my prices? How can I drive more traffic in? How can I reduce costs somewhere else? Because the math all needs to work together.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. And I was just talking to an operator this week. He's got some locations in Florida and he's based out of here in California. And he was saying, surprisingly, it's becoming cheaper to open a new restaurant here in California than Florida, just given the economics of opening in Florida now. With everybody moving to Florida, the construction's more expensive. The demand for labor is really high there too.
they're both really tough markets. I wouldn't be bragging about one versus the other. It's and both are right now a little bit slower in permitting and some other things. And where franchisees sometimes get themselves into trouble is they don't negotiate enough room, before rent commencement begins, right? Because we're seeing like unprecedented permitting times in both of the states
Yeah.
you just mentioned,
Yeah.
where other states you can permit in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. That's great. Yeah, so you talked about tech, robotics, automation, kiosks. Do you think that takes away from the customer experience? And where are you guys going on that? Or you think customers are becoming pretty adapted to that and are open to that type of tech?
Yeah. So the hard thing about that question is it's really about the generations when you think about it, right? So I mean, I'm a Gen X, right? I'm 45 years old. I don't know why I keep telling people that, but I do. And when I went to college, there were no cell phones, right? When I went to college, I was one of three people with a desktop computer. No one had a laptop computer.
Right.
I'm 45, right? Half the people that prosper are older than me, right? Which means for them, that technology curve was that much steeper. If you're 21, 22 years old, you don't want to talk to anybody. I mean, I live in New York Metro, right? So pizza is a really big deal around here. And the best generational cue as to like how old are you is when was the last time you called to order a pizza? Because if you're over 50, the answer is like every Friday night, right? And if you're 22, the answer is never,
Right.
right? So we don't view it as how do I create an unnecessary friction for a boomer or a Gen X in the restaurant. It's how do I reduce the friction for Gen Z by having those kiosks. And that mix plays into your labor and plays into your model and plays into everything. But that's really the way you need to look at it. When you think about it, we're trying right now, and it's unprecedented because of the way technological growth has been. We're trying right now to appeal to boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha. And all five generations have had tremendously different life antecedents, right? And even within the generations, like a earlier millennial versus a later millennial, dramatically different life experience from a tech standpoint, right? And we're trying to get this entire ecosystem to work. So it can't be an or equation. It has to be an and equation.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting. The same with your employees too. With the tech coming into the restaurants, yeah, you've got all those generations working in the restaurant and being able to adapt and use that technology. And it's quickly changing. I'm in your age group too, and just keeping up on everything is tough. And my kids are mentioning things. It's like, what's that? What's going on there?
Yeah, your kids are probably watching Skibbity Toilets, and you're like, I don't even want to know what that is, right? But at the end of the day, we just all need to recognize that we're going to have blunders in this area, and that we need to show grace to the younger generation, and hopefully, if we do that, they show grace to us. But I mean, there are just moments where technology allows you to enable things. So, perfect example: when we started Big Chicken, Shaquille wanted to do the playlist, and Shaquille created this whole playlist of music around like what are the songs like. Think about like the songs you would hear at like Howl at the Moon, right? Where like every single song, and you're like sort of singing along, and you're happy like while you're waiting for your food or whatever. And that was his vision. And he created this massive playlist. And when I started with Big Chicken, it's this massive playlist. And every day discovery we would do, the franchisee would say, your music's really good. Like I like every single song, right? And then we found out from our staff they hated it.
Huh.
And I mean like hated it. What we thought was this insanely long playlist. It was 8 hours long. It's one thing when you're in the store one time for 20 minutes, every month or whatever, like most guests. They're in there every day and they're like, up, it's 11:04. Here comes Don't Stop Believin', right? But working with our music company, we were able to actually expand our playlist to be infinite through their AI tools, right? And now it still sounds like every song would have come off Shaquille's playlist, but our employees are engaged when it comes to music. And that's just one example on how you can take a kind of older school proposition and apply a new school approach, and everybody
Yeah.
wins.
Yeah, and AI, that's the topic everybody's talking about. Yeah, as I could dive into it, I've noticed some of its limitations. It came out, it looked like it was going to take over the world and put everybody out of a job, but it, I can see it's got some limitations, but having it help on like select playlists, similar music. On the marketing side, it seems to be helping on writing some content and things like that. But are you guys looking at AI to help in any other way in the restaurant, and just keeping an eye on that?
Yeah, look, we're always going to look at how do we stay technologically relevant in the right way. My dream, and I've said it before, and I've had companies immediately call me if they see me say it at a conference or in a podcast. I want nothing more than for like you to pull into the drive-through and it's like, "Welcome to Big Chicken Shack. Here, can I take your order?" Yeah, that'd be incredible. The tools aren't there yet, right? But you think about what the tool does, the amount of miscommunication between the person at the microphone and the person at the drive through is huge right now. So if you're able to limit those defects in the guest experience, that's a good thing. If you're able to get more of their time, more of the employees' time spent on quicker food prep so you can get people through the drive through faster, that's a good thing. So AI is not necessarily about the elimination of jobs. It's really about the reduction of defects in
Okay.
process, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you view it from that lens, then you say, okay, if this is a people business, how do we use AI to take the defects out of the tough process side of the business so that people can be operating the people side of this
Yeah. Okay.
business? And that's, I think, the cool thing.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I never thought about taking celebrities image likeness, have an AI. Yeah, you could use Shaq's voice. I
Yeah.
bet the technology.
I mean, it would just be big fun, and we're all about big fun. And to feel like you had this experience with Shaquille, it would be
Yeah,
unbelievable, right?
yeah,
The world's not there yet.
yeah. I bet it's close. It's coming.
It is close, and it's funny, just training in general in this way is so key. We use a gamified training platform called Opus, and because our Gen Zs were struggling to engage appropriately with the training tools that we had, and we said, look, we can't ask them to be trained the way I would want to be trained. We need to train them the way they want to
Yeah,
be trained, and our head of training, Trisha Bovell, has done a really incredible job doing that. And that's why we asked her to be a Prosper Accelerator this year, right? Because, that is going to be the future of this business is how right now I saw an article on Chipotle the other day that's like over 70% of their staff right now is Gen Z. And, if we all look across the industry, 70% of our workplace practices are in Gen Z, right? So as we think about Prosper accelerators, we think about Prosper in general, a lot of it has to be how do we evolve to bring Gen Z in and how do we create the construct because we're only 4 or 5 years away from Gen Alpha coming.
yeah,
How do we create the construct where we're not 10, 15 years behind figuring out that generation? We're ready waiting for them to pull them in the right way.
yeah. Great. Yeah, and you mentioned the Prosper Accelerator program. Yeah, and Trisha is part of the program, the 2024 cohort here. You spoke to the group earlier this year too on a town hall, but what do you see the benefit with the accelerator program and Big Chicken and your involvement? Why are you guys so involved?
It's really interesting. It's an interesting question, right? One of my good friends is he does DEI for one of the largest consultants in the world. He runs the department, and he talks a lot about how folks when they're younger in their career, women, people of color, you name it, there's no shortage of mentorship. Anyone's willing to go have a coffee with you and tell you the 3 to 5 things you need to be thinking about and say, hey, give me a call if you ever want to talk through your career, right? There's no shortage of mentorship. There's a massive shortage of sponsorship, right? Because sponsorship's a little different. Sponsorship is action based. Sponsorship is I've got you. I'm going to make sure you get the tools that you need to go to the next step. I'm going to make sure that your company is thinking about you for that next role, even if it's not a perfect fit. And if they're not willing to, another company will think about. That's what Prosper Accelerator is to me. Prosper Accelerator to me is building a network of sponsors, as well as building a network of people in the next generation who can start talking together, learning together, growing together. Because let's face it, Prosper Accelerators are going to be who replace us in the next 10 years. And we better be in a position to leave the Jersey in a better place. That only happens if we're sponsoring them now. And that's why we're really proud that Trish is here as a Prosper Accelerator. And I mean, I've already identified the person I would love to put through the program in 2025 if you and David Job give me the ability to do so. But that's really what it is. It's about building sponsorship, and it's about building a true network of people who can take the reins from us when the time is right and continue to grow this industry the right way.
Yeah, no, that's key. And yeah, I really appreciate your forward thinking on that, where everybody gets a lot of people get caught up in the day to day, and thinking forward for the next generation. And I think your insight is key there. It's great to mentor people, but like where the rubber meets the road, it's like what else other than the coffee are you doing to help promote the next generation of leaders? And
Yes. Sponsorship's different. It's you signing your name under that person saying, I've got you and I'm gonna grow you and I'm gonna do what it takes to make sure you're ready to be next up,
yeah,
right? And I think that you guys have done a really great job at Prosper in creating that framework for the industry and making it a little easier for folks to want to do that with their people.
great. I appreciate that. And yeah, for sure, send us your accelerator for 2025. We're already starting to think about 2025. I can't believe it. This year's going fast, but we're excited for
Yeah.
2025. In the 2024 cohort, yeah, we maxed it out, 125 people. I'm excited to say. And then we'll have that retreat later in October of this year. Inspire Brands is hosting us, and just really good opportunities for the next generation of leaders. And I say next generation of leaders, like you mentioned, uh, a lot of these people they are really the leaders already. Um, and I've been so impressed with the accelerators that I've met, and they're well along their way of being the leaders already.
Yeah, but look, there's that whole thing, right? You go up the mountain and it gets lonelier the closer you get to the top,
Yep,
right? And we're making sure that that next generation, they're not going to be lonely
yep,
when they get to the top.
yep. That
And
support.
that I think is the really best thing that we could possibly do.
Yep, that's great. Um, So, briefly, too, I wanted to talk about how did you get into the industry as well, and your background, and I want to just talk about it for some lessons for like an accelerator, yeah, and somebody thinking about, they want to start their own concept someday, or they want to be a CEO of a concept. How did you get involved in the industry?
Yeah, it was my midlife crisis, quite honestly. I joke and I don't, right? I came out of big CPG. I was at Procter and Gamble and Clorox and Anheuser Busch InBev, and it's actually really really fascinating how many QSR and fast casual CEOs came out of CPG, right? Uh, Brian Nickel, Rob Lynch, right? Just to name two. Latchman at Starbucks, right? Major restaurant CEOs came out of CPG because of the process and the discipline and this relentless focus on your consumer, right? And a relentless focus on the math, right? We talk about culinary arts, but this is very much also data science, right? And when I was at Anheuser-Busch InBev, I ran the on-premise for North America and had every bar, restaurant, nightclub, stadium in America. The business came up to me. And that was when I really got to learn about what makes restaurants tick, but from not being in the weeds every day, right? We had these 5 pain points that I identified, which was build traffic, check size, be innovative, well engaged servers and trained servers, managing commodity costs. And most of the supplier community wasn't appropriately interacting with the restaurant group in a way where you mitigated those 5 pain points. That's what we sought to do. And I started building a really large network for myself in the restaurant business. And that led to us doing Beer Park by Budweiser out in Las Vegas with JRS Hospitality, which is Perry Rogers, Shaquille's agent, and his partners, and got to know Shaquille through the process. And they said, man, we would love at some point if you came and worked with us on a brand, whether with Shaquille or not, but, definitely with Shaquille, CPG, restaurant, retail. And that's how I got into this, right? The one advice I would give, and if you've never read the book True North by Bill George, it's my absolute favorite book, right? Because it's really, you can't run your career on a clock. It can't be, I hope to be a vice president by the time I'm 32, and I hope to make X amount of money by the time I'm 35. Um, it can't be about that. It has to be about following your compass, right? And for me, everything we're looking to do at Big Chicken, being a partnership focused franchise system, being rooted in multi generational consumers, right, and multi generational staff, all of it is rooted, quite honestly, in us following our compass and having a group of people with aligned ethos and aligned purpose, trying to do that together.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that book, and yeah, you know, and I, a big supporter. People have goals, but it's interesting though where life takes you, and just to be open for opportunities and having an eye out for opportunities when they come up. You don't know how they're gonna come out over to you, and
Now let's face it, our legacy. No one at your funeral, no one's going to give the eulogy and say in 2025 he opened 30 new units and had a EBITDA growth of this. This whole thing, it's about the people. It's about all of us. It's about, did we help people rise? Who helped us rise? You'll never be able to really pay back your mentors. So are you paying it forward to other people? You'll never pay back your sponsors. So are you paying it forward to other people? How do we build this together, and how do we make sure that we're doing right by the community? And if you follow your compass every single day, all of those clock steps, they just sort of happen.
yeah, yeah. So we've talked about mentors quite a bit. Do you have one or two key mentors that helped you?
Oh, I'm so lucky. I had many mentors. It took a village to build me up,
Okay.
I think, right? But it's one of my best mentors, was Ben Odor, who ended up becoming CEO of Clorox and was Glassdoor's CEO of the year at one point. And Benno taught me you could be really, really good to people and really, really tough on results, right? And that's a key learning, because you have some people that are, they want to be so good to people they get soft on results, or they get so hard on results they forget about the compassion towards people. And that was a key learning lesson at that point. Another mentor, Rich Baruch at Clorox, he's now CEO of Physicians Beauty. He taught me it's okay to have a big, hairy, audacious goal, and it's okay to build a little competition, friendly, jovial, joking around, high fiving type competition to make things happen. And then at Anheuser-Busch, the first guy that brought me into the business was actually an InBev guy named Felipe Spiegel. And he would say these things that on the outside, if you just read them in email, you would be like, man, this guy's not a nice guy, right? And then the more you thought about it, you would say, this is actually the best guy, right? Because what he's telling you is so empowering. And I use some of these his sayings with my team, which always confuses them because I say them in like a Brazilian accent sometimes. I'm like, what are you doing, right? But he used to say all the time when you would go to him, and if you couldn't make a decision, he would look you dead in the eye and say, if I have to do for you, I don't need you.
Hmm.
And then he'd just walk away. And that was his way of telling you, you know what you need to
Right.
do. You've got this. Be an owner,
Yep.
right? Be an owner, right? Or there's two types of problems: my problems and your problems. Man, I don't have time to figure out my problems,
Right.
right? Now, if it was a really big problem, he was the first guy to like whip out the notebook and say, "Let's go." But the small, so when these are the types of people that you're learning from, you quickly recognize that my ethos is rooted in, you have to have personal accountability, you have to have personal ownership, you have to want to be a part of a greater team and a greater being, and you have to be tough on results, but man, you also have to be really great to
Yeah.
people. And for me, that's the best working environment, when people are working together towards collective purpose, holding each other accountable, but genuinely love being together and working together too.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great team. Yeah, and I think about it.
Yeah.
Some of the teachers, same thing with teachers I've had growing up. They hold you accountable, give you that C or D, and you're like, "What's up with this?" And it's like, "Well, yeah, I had one English teacher. I remember high school. I got a D on my first paper. Had three spelling errors on it. Had to handwrite it back in the day, right? But it was all from this place of your development and that accountability. You can't be too soft, and that's a tough line to
Right.
walk.
Look, all anyone wants you to be is the best possible version of yourself. That's it,
Yeah.
right? If I know that someone doesn't have the capacity to take it that one step further, you're going to be a little bit more lenient with that person than if you know, hey, that person has so much more they can bring right now, and they're just choosing to not.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Just a couple more questions for you, and we'll wrap it up. But if you had to choose a completely different career path, what would you do and why?
I mean, I've had so many career paths in CPG and restaurant. At my core, I'm first and foremost a teacher, and that would probably be
Hmm.
it. you know, a teacher, university professor, that sort of thing. And I think it really comes down to, well, you just mentioned the teacher, that you told the story of a teacher giving you a D, and you said it with a smile on your face, nodding like that. That teacher, right? That teacher grew you. And I think, if you're a good manager or a good leader, at your core, you're first and foremost a good teacher. And I think that's what I would choose to do, all other things being equal.
Great. Great. And then what's your favorite item on the big chicken menu?
All right, so it's going to sound counterintuitive because we're chicken concept, and I love our chicken, but our chocolate peanut butter milkshake
Mm,
is probably the best milkshake I've ever had in my
sounds
life.
great.
Quite honestly, yeah, to a point like I'll go into the restaurant for lunch, and that is my lunch.
That
Don't judge me.
sounds
Yeah.
amazing. And then what's your favorite food of all time?
Oh, I can't answer that question. There's too many, right? And as long as it's being washed down with an ice cold beer or bourbon, life is beautiful.
Okay.
But I think I've always had a very eclectic menu taste, and I couldn't really say this is the favorite, other than I guess saying Big Chicken's chocolate peanut butter milkshake.
Nice. That takes the all time. Cool. I like it. Sounds
Yeah.
great. Well, Josh, really appreciate your help and involvement with the Prosper Forum and the Prosper Accelerators and support on that front. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at the Amelia Island this August. And appreciate your time and your insights today.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to be at Amelia Island, and I mean it's already just 2 months away. By the time this airs, it'll probably be 4 to 6 weeks away,
Yeah,
right? So we're almost there, and it's going to be great seeing the new accelerator class. And it's always great when the industry gets together because as much great content as you guys put on, and it's great. I have pages of notes from last year's conference. It's after that because that all that content really just sparks thought, and then have all these executives go out to the lawn at the hotel there and start talking about what it means for our businesses and what it means for each other. That's the best part, right? We're at our best when we're all together, and especially when we're being provoked to think differently. And that's why Prosper is one of my favorite conferences of the year.
great. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your time today, Josh.
Thank you very much.